For me, there's always a public dimension to any philosophical project, whether one views it in the political terms or not. I mean, I think when Aristophanes characterizes Socrates and the clouds in the same way that you talked about Thales, right? That Socrates, you would think, is concerned with just these Socratic dialogues having to do with what is courage, what is justice, trying to unsettle people's mind, to be that kind of stingray to push people. But he still ends up condemned by the state. And he holds on to his commitment to intellectual integrity, holds on to his commitment to intellectual conscience. I will do this no matter what. Now, he's been in the military and so forth and so on. But the question becomes really, what particular form of the public is always already operating in one's conception of philosophy? So when you move toward the direction, let's say, of a Cicero, where you really begin to talk about statespersons and the role of oratory and the role of eloquence and its relation to wisdom and its relation to high quality public life under the auspices of an empire, all you're doing is just teasing out a particular conception of the public that's already incipient or implicit in any conception of philosophy. When Plato steals away with the academy, responding to Isocrates, that's a certain kind of public life. When the monks later on in the Middle Ages steal away with monasteries, that's still a certain kind of public life. So there is a certain inescapable exchange. I know that Leo Strauss's and others have talked about this in terms of esoteric and exoteric, and that the highly specialized discourses of philosophy are going to be open only to those who've been socialized and educated in such a way that you know what the jargon means. And so you're going to be able to use a certain kind of public and popular language that can say X or Y, but not really what you mean, because you, on the ground, only the few have access to it. And if you told the full truth, you'd be persecuted or excommunicated like Spinoza anyway. So it seems to me that in that way, the question becomes, well, what are the choices of the particular kinds of publics that we're willing to embrace in light of our calling? Now, I'm very old school. See, I believe in vocations. I believe in the vocation. I began with Weber's two great essays, Politics and Vocation, Sciences, 1917, 1919. That ethics of conviction and ethics of responsibility, and what that beruf, that calling, that connection to a cause that goes far beyond any brand. Far beyond any brand. Of course, it goes all the way back to Luther's notion of beruf. And in some ways, even Socrates' daimon, the voice speaking to him. But most importantly, it's just a matter of trying to lure out of we human creatures something grander than just the dominant routine of conforming to the prevailing customs and habits. Because I have a very, very Chekhov-like, Beckett-like conception of the human species. We are wretched. And most of human history is a history of domination and subjugation and exploitation, and organized greed and institutionalized hatred, and so manipulation of fear. But then we have Kairos moments. We have these magnificent moments of interruption and disruption. And it could be personally in terms of friendships. It could be intellectually in terms of, reading a Rilke or reading some Faulkner or reading Virginia Woolf or reading Book of the Dead or reading Rumi. But there's ways that take us beyond just our routine. Now, institutionalized forms of interruption are actually moments in which human self-determination of those who are oppressed have some kind of resonance. Democracy, small, deep, thin, or thick. They tend not to last too long because the domination is still always already there. It serves as the backdrop. We don't know of a democracy that doesn't have an imperial backdrop, that doesn't have a patriarchal backdrop, but it's still very precious, no doubt about that. So that the question then becomes for myself, what does the philosophical vocation look like in 2024 for someone like myself? to allow a particular tradition of calling linked toward a love of wisdom, a quest for truth, beauty, goodness, and the holy. Old school now. But I'm holding on. That's truth, capital T, of which we have no access to. It's bigger than all of us, will always be bigger than all of us, but we're still on our way. Beauty, capital B, but always manifests in small b, beauties in all of the various cultures. And we're on our way, and no culture has full monopoly on that truth, that beauty, that goodness, or even on the holy. And in 2023, it seems to me that if we can't come to terms with a philosophy that goes to school with the catastrophic and the comic, that goes to school with the monstrous and the musical, then it's hard to know what ways philosophy can be a force of good in such a dark moment in the history of the species.